I will share with you from the Battle of the Bulge starting on December the 17th. I was up real early and wrote my mother a long letter. In the afternoons, Sergeant Lloyd Neals and I went to a small village in the evening, and I'd gone to bed quite early. The news came of General von Rundstedt and the Germans penetrating the American lines. We were called to go because we were trained to go fast, always ready. We were up the remainder of the night packing and getting our equipment ready. The morning of December the 18th, 44, we loaded in open semi-tractor trailers. They were 40 feet long, flat trailer trucks, open with sideboards. They loaded the men and equipment in like loading a load of cattle. There was just room to stand. We left Soissons by 10 o'clock. We were stationed at Soissons, France, and we left there about 10 o'clock. We arrived at Bastogne after dark. It was very cold and it started to snow with the freezing rains before we got there. They sent us on to Wevermont. The 101st Airborne, following us, stayed in Bastogne. The snow had started to lay in patches by the time we got to Wevermont. Before it got light, we had dug in. December 19th, we had dug in to form a perimeter defense at Wevermont. We were ready for an attack from any direction the Germans would come. The night of December the 20th, we moved to another location. We went into position early in the morning of December the 21st. It had been snowing and the ground was covered. We occupied the ridge between Grand Start and Fortuna. We are on the left side of the Grand Start. It was snowing hard all day, December 22nd. An outpost was established by mid-afternoon. Support fire was called for as the enemy approached. It snowed all day on December the 23rd. The outpost established was lost and re-established several times. The Germans were supposed to take Liège, but was stopped at this point. It was very cold. Regnier was taken earlier. The German 2nd SS Panzer Division attacked the crossroads and the troops had to move back, about 1,500. On the day before Christmas, 24th, we moved out of the foxhole into the woods, and Company B loaded on 11 tanks. This weather had been so bad that you could not move very well with trucks. General Patton had gone up to one of the chapels nearby the day before and prayed the famous prayer. The weather was so bad that the planes could not fly their mission. He said, "Give me just a few hours of sunlight so we can attack the enemy." General Patton's prayer was answered somehow by the miracles of God. Of course, he used a lot of words that I wouldn't dare pray. We rode over 12 miles behind the enemy line. Our mission was to take Regnier to release the troops trapped in the St. Vith area. The assault began at 1400. We went into town with guns blazing. They were spraying the entire town with machine gun fire from the tanks, and every time they fired, the cannon and the recoil would nearly sling us off the top of the tank. I was trying to take some pictures of the battle from the top of the tank, but every time I would get ready to snap a picture, the tank would fire and the big gun, and it was about all I could do to stay on. Finally, Harry Enhurst said, "Put that damn thing in your pocket before you get us all killed." Luck was still with us. There was only 157 and a tank gun still defending Regnier, hiding in a barn. It was soon put out of working order. Another one had left town before we got there. We dismounted from the tanks about 150 yards from the village, and the tanks pulled back, and by 1500, Regnier was clear. We dug in near some houses. Some of the boys went into the houses, but I stayed in my foxhole. I was looking for the Germans to come back in full force. The boys that went into the house found the Christmas cakes and women were cooking when we made the surprise visit to the village. They brought some of the cake back to the foxhole. I had been taken away from the battalion and put in as a gunner in a machine gun squad. The squad was made up of Sergeant Seals, Harry and Hurst, Raymond Moore, and I. It was an extra machine gun to give more firepower. We received orders at 1800 to move back. General Montgomery, who had just taken over command, wanted to straighten the defense line. We were not in the habit of giving up ground, before that we had taken, but it proved a good plan later on. We moved out at 21:30. I had to carry the machine gun until I almost was exhausted. It was a matter of kill or be killed. I had the machine gun thrown over my shoulder and the trigger guard caught in the shoulder strap on my pack. I carried the thing until I was ready to fall, a single line right down the railroad tracks. We were passing through the enemy line and could not even speak to another except in a whisper. The Germans had closed in from the back after we made the attack through their lines. We hiked all night long with the Germans closing in on our rear. Everybody got out of the trap that could. We released about 40,000 troops. We were told that were caught in a trap when we took to Regnier with the tanks. The regiment was to be in reserve west of us. Company B was to be sent south to defend 504's flank at the town. Christmas Day, December 25th, I was alone in our retreat back because I became lost from the main part of our company. The roads were crowded with traffic of our troops pulling back. Everything was in a great big mess. I caught a ride on one of the big guns being pulled back. After hiking until about 3 o'clock, I became tired. Didn't know where I was, lost from the company, and finally I came to a small building off of the road a little ways. I was so tired by this time I really didn't care. I went into the building and it was a place where they stored grain. I found a big box about half full of wheat, and I jumped into the box and covered myself over with the wheat. I soon went to sleep. When I woke, it was Christmas morning. The sun was shining and very white, except I could hear firing in the distance ahead. I shook myself and looked around. Nobody was to be seen. I went outside on the sunny side of the building, and there I raked the snow back enough to peel off the wrapping off of the K-ration and put it in my pack and started to fire enough to warm the K-ration. Soon after I ate, I started up the road toward the sound of the fighting, and lo and behold, I walked right into my own company. This was the second time this had happened. It happened one time before, one night back in Italy. It was a sad-looking bunch of fellows that stood shivering around a little paper fire that day. I was thankful that we had pulled back far enough to put up a line of resistance when the Germans caught up with us. The company was attacked at 2200, but was repulsed. They never asked where I'd been, and I never told them where I'd been. I took my place alongside them until the attack started. The Germans attacked about 6:30 in the morning of December the 26th. We were close to a rock house. How we would like to have gone inside and built a fire in the fireplace and warm for a while, but we were afraid the Germans would shell the house when we saw the smoke coming from the chimney. When the attack started, I ran around the house preparing to set up the machine gun in the basement and shoot out the window. I kicked open the basement door. The family of the house had a little altar set up down in the basement, and all of them were on their knees praying, I guess. I hated to disturb them, but I went on to the next room and set up the machine gun, pointed out the window. I looked when I was on a tour in 1994 for the little building with the grain and the rock house. I'm not sure that I found them. I did meet a man who when I visited Regnier, who was a young boy hiding in the barn watching the tanks come into Regnier on December 25th. We acted along the Company C and regained the lost ground. Many Germans were killed and 10 were captured. We were relieved later in the day by the 23rd Armored Infantry Battalion. This is a modern poem entitled, "Is That My Son?" I always watch the TV when the news come on each day. I move up closer for a better vision since my son has been away. Is that my son I see yonder? Could it be my dear son Ray? Our love has grown more fonder after my son was taken away. Each night I say a prayer for Ray, that soon the battle will end. I pray sometimes during the day for his guardian angel to descend. Soldiers are moving toward the town. I can see the flash of gunfire. Not a place of shelter to be found. Lord, keep him safe is my desire. Bring him safely home real soon, back to the old home place, whether it be sundown or noon, that I might see my darling's face. This is regards to a mother and his son.